Last Friday, we went to the theaters, and on opening night, we watched The Devil Wears Prada 2, and we all loved it. I thought it was brilliant. My 50-year-old husband thought it was great, and my 14-year-old and 11-year-old boys were also big fans. So, how did they do it? How did The Devil Wears Prada 2 manage to get this sequel and all its fabulous merch to work? And I'm going to argue that they placed their characters in our very troubled times that we're experiencing today, especially for any kind of writing and journalism. And they had them try to figure out how to adult in those spaces that so many of us find ourselves in. And it made for a fantastic, fantastic sequel. And I'm not going to hold this popcorn the whole time. But look how cute it is. And it gives you this. Do we look chic? I think we look chic. And of course, that's all. Except that that's not all, because now we're going to talk. So it's been 20 years between our two films, and the original director, David Frankel, came back, and Lauren Weisberger, who wrote the original 2003 novel Where It All Started, is also back as co-writer of the screenplay. And of course, we have Anne Hathaway playing Andy, and Meryl Streep playing Miranda, and Emily Blunt still playing Emily, and Stanley Tucci playing Nigel. We have our four characters that we loved so much in the original. Of course, they're all Hollywood stars, so they haven't changed that much. They look about as good, if not better, than they did in the last film, but the times really have changed. One of the things that they do to escape all the tired sequel tropes, where we just basically have the same story told maybe with a little higher stakes and repeating the same gags, is that they take our characters who 20 years ago were working for a magazine that basically ran the fashion world, and they put them where magazines are now, which is they don't hold the kind of power that they used to hold. And what happens to these people who are used to working for an iconic institution when suddenly that institution no longer holds the sway that it once did? It's an amazing way to bring us back into their lives, to make us feel empathy with them, and to speak to today's times, and all of that in one sequel. Journalism was already struggling 20 years ago when the original Devil Wears Prada was made, but it is really, really struggling today. When our film opens, we have Andy surrounded by all her amazing colleagues at the Vanguard. They're award-winning journalists. She's getting this big award. And as she's about to get up to give her speech, they all get texts that they've been fired. It's completely realistic, and it also gives her a moment to forget the speech she was going to give about the amazing story that she wrote, and instead speak to this, to what has happened to our times and to our respect for journalism, which is so vital for our democracy to function, our society to keep going, how much it has eroded and how little we read it and we value it, and we certainly don't want to pay for it. Of course, this isn't Spotlight or some other Oscar-winning film about the dark state of the world and journalism. This is The Devil Wears Prada too. So it leads to her speech going viral, and through that, the man Herb, who's above Miranda, decides to bring Andy back, because it's not just Vanguard and all the other newspapers that are in trouble. There's trouble brewing also at Runway. And what we see with Andy as a character throughout the film is that while she chose the path that she loved as an undergraduate student and that we saw her try to pursue in the first movie, those 8 months at Runway did change her. She does have still pretty great fashion style, even though she can't afford it. But she also can't resist the idea of bringing her more profound style of storytelling and the glamour of Runway together, and seeing if that way she can make a living while also making the world better. So she's been deeply, deeply shaped by movie one, and now we are about to see what she does with it. When we think about journalism and its struggles, we tend to think about print newspapers, but magazines have also been struggling, as they show us in The Devils Wears Prada too. I have yet to get over the fact that Entertainment Weekly no longer comes in my mailbox and tells me in the most delicious, fun prose about everything that's happening in movies and TV and music. It's terrible. Magazines are going out of print, and there is an Entertainment Weekly that's digital, but it just doesn't do it for me. And in the case of Runway, sure, they still have their print version, but they find themselves trying to appeal to customers more and more and more in a digital version, which puts our devil, Miranda Priestly, in a lot of trouble, because that is just not what she knows how to do. That's not who she is. And not only is she trying to produce content that she doesn't understand, but she's also trying to do it with a lot less money, because it doesn't compare. The little ads that people watch online do not hold the same financial weight as those amazing spreads. So just as Andy has had to adapt herself to a life in which her journalistic dreams keep shrinking, so has Miranda. And that is such a great transformation for this character. She is trying to keep her empire going as her empire loses power and value and influence by the minute. And for someone who has spent her whole life doing this, to suddenly find herself as a very chic dinosaur is a really compelling journey for us to go with her on. For Miranda Priestly, she's not only working in magazines which are struggling, but the world has left her way of being a boss behind. At least for women bosses, they no longer get to treat everybody like crap. There's still some of that. She has an assistant number 2, played by Caleb Huron. He's absolutely delightful. And he still can't pee all day. Can't leave the desk. So that's still there. But while Emily, assistant number 1 in the first movie, was just there to remind her of people's names and their jobs when she saw them at parties, her current assistant, her job is to basically muzzle her at meetings when Miranda says inappropriate things. She's not allowed to talk about suicide. She doesn't understand why, but she can't. She really can't deal with the fact that now they're going to have larger sized models, or if you want to call it regular sized models, human sized models like the rest of us. And she can't get the term body positivity in, so she's like, body negative, and she gets muzzled again. She has found herself in a situation where, in order to keep the magazine afloat, she's not only trying to work in a much smaller budget, she's trying to let the people that she's always thought were much lesser than tell her how to speak and interrupt her, and she lets it happen. Andy walks by and she sees her like trying to hang her own coat. And then somebody's like, oh yeah, can you believe it? She used to throw her coat. And people and Andy's like, oh yeah, I can't believe it. So this is a Miranda who is now living in these times. And in these times, she is no longer untouchable. And yet, she's still Miranda. The part of her that made it so that she would be a fashion icon is still in there. It just has to wake up. Arguably, in today's world, but certainly in the Devils Wears Prada too, billionaires are running the show and calling the shots. In this case, there was Irv, the original billionaire, who had helped found Runway, and he really cared about the thing that he had created. But as the movie evolves, the person that ends up being in charge of his whole fortune is BJ Novak, who was Ryan in The Office. And he's just as douchey in this one as Ryan from The Office. And unlike his dad, he doesn't care. He didn't build this. He just grew up with a bunch of money and this means nothing to him. What we get with him is she finds out they have a cafeteria in that building, which is very funny. But when she goes to the cafeteria, she gets surrounded by those big group of people in suits who are like, oh, we're gonna unleash you, Miranda Priestly. And they mean that as a way to honor her. But what they really want is what these people in suits always want, which is let's fire a bunch of the people, make the poor people who stay behind work 10 times harder for the same amount of money, and then theoretically call that a better product. And as this is happening, Miranda just agrees. This is when we need Andy. Because Andy, the idealist, still believes that they can save Runway. And Runway is suddenly something idealistic to save, which is a great flip from 20 years ago when she first started on her first day. It's a wonderful thing for us to get behind because, again, this is a comedy. It's a happy comedy despite its darker themes, to think, is there a way that we can, in fact, stand up to the table of people in suits who tell us one thing while destroying everything that we've worked so hard at doing? In The Devils Wears Prada, there is. As the world of magazines struggles in this sequel, there's one place in fashion that seems to have gotten more power than it had before, and that would be the retail of high fashion products. That means that in order to survive, Miranda needs to play nice with the people that she used to terrify, because if she chose to not put their products on her magazine, they would have a harder time selling them. And as the story unfolds, she really needs to play nice with the person who runs Dior. That would be Emily. And talk about somebody that she used to terrorize and backstab and mess with. And Emily Blunt has a blast playing imperious to Miranda because she has really figured it out. Not only is she working on the luxury retail side, but she is dating a billionaire. Benji, played by Justin Theroux, with amazing stupidity and inability to speak and douchiness. She theoretically really has it together. He's buying her Monets and all sorts of expensive jewelry. Of course, she's divorced and has 2 kids with some other douchey guy who's not a billionaire. 2 decades later, the one that has the most power, at least seemingly, is Emily. And that means that Andy, who betrayed her, and Miranda, who betrayed her, have to pay their dues, which is a wonderful thing to watch. But also, she's still Emily. Even with all of that, Emily always had a very soft, vulnerable middle, and even Monet can't help her get rid of that. The Devils Wears Prada sequel is as much about growing up and adulting as it is about the world that they live in growing darker. And it explores just how much we change as we get pummeled by difficulties. In the case of Andy, I'd say she hasn't changed hardly at all. And she was the one that needed to change the least. Yes, she was naive. Yes, she was idealistic. But those are not necessarily the worst qualities to have. She still works too much and she continues to set her personal life aside for her real passion. Though she, idealist that she is, has frozen her eggs and is waiting for the right man to come along. He maybe does in the movie. I think we're supposed to believe that probably he has. Though again, it's a very small part of the film. But it is her idealist, naive sense that she can make the world better that ends up saving all of the characters in the film, because not only does she have that, she's always had the brains. She's also brilliant. As a protagonist, it is wonderful to see the qualities that she was mocked for being the ones that end up helping her save this thing that she had no idea how much she loved until she returned to it. And that is part of the optimism of the film, despite the dark times that we're living through and how it portrays them. Miranda, our titular devil, is perhaps the person who has changed the most. And she's the one that needed to change the most, because she was the one that, from an ethical perspective, was the most problematic of the characters in the original film, thus the devil. She has changed in ways that I think do make her a better person, if not necessarily, at least through most of the film, a better person to be running Runway. Humbled is the best word that I can come up with her. She's humbled. She's been humbled by the world changing around her. She still has her roar. Of course, she is Miranda, and she's still always able to size up the situation. But she's been sizing up for so long, and she knows that she's on the losing end of the changes. And I think she's tired of trying to figure out how to always stay ahead, which again is why she needs Andy. Even as all of this has happened, she also remains the best in the business, not just because of what she's able to produce in terms of the magazine, but also because she understands how the game is played. And as Andy, in her very idealistic, naive sense of the world, tries to do something that will give Miranda back Runway, Miranda knows exactly what she has done, which is to take it completely away and destroy Runway. And that is when we get Miranda and Andy coming together, our idealist and our pragmatist, and then they figure out how to save Runway and themselves in a very creative, brilliant way. As we watch Miranda evolve throughout the film, we see her come back to some of the best qualities of who she was, while leaving behind the worst qualities that made her so funny, but also so terrifying to work for. And that is an amazing feat for a sequel. And that's also why I think waiting 20 years between them really helps, because she changed, the world changed, and now I dare you not to love Miranda. I mean, we always loved her, but feared her. But now I just love and admire her. What would I do? The sequel asks us how much one, in fact, can change in 2 decades. With Emily, that is one of the best examples of our nature being who we are. She can date billionaires, and she can run Dior, and she can be on top of the world, and she's still that assistant number 2, basically, not even number 1, just sort of tied to Miranda, because Emily's vulnerability comes from deep insecurities that appeared way before we saw her in the first movie. We don't know what they are, but we know that person. We know people who theoretically have it all. She's smart, she's beautiful, she's very fashionable, she is on top of the world, but there's still a wound there that doesn't allow them to see and appreciate everything they have, and so they lash out. They're mean, but it's like a meanness that comes from pain. And that's who she is. And that, by the way, makes her endearing. You want to protect her. I wonder, as Andy and Miranda change as much as they do, if Emily can change. She does something really lovely at the end. She throws out an olive branch, but the olive branch that she throws out is really an admission of her own insecurities and a reaching out for connection. It's a wonderful thing to watch, for her to finally try to connect to people who might help her heal some of those wounds, because they have the power and security that she lacks. Let's hope so. I'm rooting for Emily. I don't know how it is for men in the fashion industry, because I don't know that much about the fashion industry other than what I've learned on The Devil Wears Prada. But the silent hero of these 2 films is Stanley Tucci's Nigel. He never, as far as we can tell, betrays anybody. He is constant, he is kind, he will tell you what you need to know in terms of what you're wearing or what you're eating and so on in order to survive in this world. I think you need a Nigel. We all need a Nigel. Wouldn't it be lovely if we all had a Nigel in our lives? And the question, of course, then becomes, what is it like to be Nigel? One of the things that this film does that I thought was so moving and satisfying is that Andy finally explains to Miranda that Nigel might like to have a little bit of spotlight on himself. He's not just the side of her shadow, and he would like the world to know that. It's just a beautiful gesture for us to witness, and if you want to get chills, stick to the end of the movie, because you learn something about him, which I won't reveal, that explains just how much this man is the puppeteer of goodness in this world of women who don't always look after each other the way they should, and how he sets up the whole plot in motion, knowing that if he could just bring Miranda and Andy together, now that Andy is more grown and Miranda is more humbled, they could create something amazing. And they do. So here's to the quiet characters who sit to the side but also get their due, both in our films and hopefully in life. If you have somebody like Nigel in your life, let them know just how much they mean to you and what they've done for you, because they will appreciate it. They won't ask for it, but they'll appreciate it. Thank you for watching this video about The Devil Wears Prada 2. There's another one about The Devil Wears Prada 1. If you want to know how we ended up here, please check it out. It is pinned in the comments. And let me know, what did you think about these more grown-up characters in this grittier world? Did their journeys work for you? Did they not? Who was your favorite character? What was your favorite outfit? Thank you, as always, for watching, and please like, comment, share, subscribe, and as always, stay big-hearted.